Hi, I'm Tom Glassman, and I've been photographing for well over 40 years. And I'm here with a few quick tips on how you can immediately start taking better photographs, whether you're an old pro or you're trying to master a new DSLR for the first time, or even if you only shoot with a cell phone. And the way we're going to do this is to look at two or three different photographs and discuss why they work, why they don't, composition, and more. My goal is to get you in and out quickly so you can spend more time shooting and less time watching me. So let's get started. Welcome back. We are talking about shadows today. And, I was surprised at how many shadows I had, and there are a lot that didn't even make it into this lesson. But the reason I'm talking about shadows and the reason I end up shooting a lot of them is they can make an ordinary image kind of interesting. And you don't go out looking for them, but if you keep an eye out for them, you'll be amazed at how many places they show up. Actually, I've shown you a couple of images you'll see today in previous episodes, but it was the shadow that drew my attention first and foremost. So let's go through them. Again, there are a bunch, so I'll try and move quickly. This is a case where what caught my eye here was the shadow of the picket fence in this kind of interesting stair-step effect. And typically I'd move in close, I'd have horizontal lines here, vertical lines here, black and white, but you may remember this image. What I ended up finally shooting, it was against a white sort of barn, and I centered this with these black windows. And again, you had the horizontal, the vertical, the dark shadows, and it was sort of balanced all along here. So that's what I ended up with, but this is what caught my eye here. I'm going to, because we have so many, I have to do this window pull down thing. This is a case in Boston. This was a fire escape. I was out on my lunch hours around noon. Actually, in this case, it was a Saturday, as I recall. This is dark green, and it was harsh sun. You see how harsh the shadow is. There are little places where there's some gray, but by and large, it's just all black and white. It looks almost like a negative. And these are the fire escapes on an old building with a circular stairs going up, and these are the catwalks you take along the side of the building. The reason they're canted is because I tilted the camera up to get more of them in the viewfinder, and of course that distorts the image, but I was just looking for an abstract. As I was taking this, some person, actually a guy with a camera, was walking by, and he said, "What are you shooting?" And I showed him. He went, "Damn." I said, "I've never seen that," and he lives right around the corner. But this is a case where you're looking up, and just the shadows make this. Shooting fire escapes is not a great image. But going out, the time of day when they tell you not to go out, you should only go out the magic hours, like dawn and dusk. Well, you can get great shadows in the middle of the day when you shouldn't be out. And that's what this is here. Another image, and I've shown you this before, but these were the stairs on a storage tank for a brewery. And only half the dark lines in here are real. There's half of the actual staircase going up the, or ladder going up the brewery tank, and the rest are just shadows. But it makes a nice pattern. On a gray day without the sun and harsh shadows, you would just see the circular stairwell and a gray tank and would not make a great image. So another point to take away here is the same object on different days in different light gives you different objects. And in some days, whether it could be rain or a fog or snow, you can get a very dramatic image. So keep your eyes open and revisit the same thing again and again and again. I always do that. If there's snow, I go charging out to what'll make a nice image that I've kept in the back of my mind, and I know it'll work there. In the same vein, you've not seen this one before. These are stairs on an oil storage tank. This and the last one too were color photographs. And it was a bright, again, showing you another one that was up in Port Angeles, Washington. This was shot on film. I spot metered off of this and opened up 2 stops. It's glossy white, so you can't even see the rivets. But what I liked was the fact that this color image looks like a black and white pen and ink drawing. And you can see the sort of the gray shadows, the stairs coming out and moving around. And this is fun. It's very esoteric. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't take it or enjoy it, but I have a ball with this one. And what it is, they're white wire chairs throwing a black shadow. So you have something white creating something black, and it's against a wall that's actually some looks like some kind of fiberboard. This was in a sort of architectural ruin place. But again, to me, what's just fascinating is the shadow and something white is creating something black. So I had fun with that. And it's a different version of shadows being sort of collected. This is a Russian Orthodox church going up. And I've driven by here a lot. And in this particular day, the sun was hitting it just right. And what this here is the shadow of this cross here. Any other time of day, later in the day, all this would be in shadow. If early in the morning, the sun would be way off to the right, and so you wouldn't get the shadow, or it'd be right against this yellow, and it just wouldn't be effective. The blue here is the blue paint and trim, and it's actually some wooden trim up here that's painted blue, but I just cropped it and framed it so you had this nice effect. But again, the shadows are what make this interesting. I was at a balloon festival, and of course it's early in the morning. They want to go up when the air is kind of still, and so the sun is like coming straight across the ground. It's not high at all. And in this case, I'm looking at the trailer where one of these balloon people keep their gear, and some guy was pointing to a balloon. I love the way the shadow of this person pointing, and this whole thing is about looking up. And again, this is what makes this. This shadow by itself would not mean much. If you're this without the shadow wouldn't mean much. But you have a trailer with balloons that are supposed to be up in the air and someone pointing up. And again, this is a case of looking at an interesting juxtaposition of 2 things that don't normally happen together. And either one by itself does not work, but together it makes kind of a fun image. Forging ahead. This was when I lived in Boston. I'd taken the water taxi back and forth to work. I'd gotten home late in the afternoon and the sun was hitting. I saw this guy actually walking back here. I saw this person's shadow with this wonderful old hat, jutting jaw and kind of nose. And I was looking at that for a shadow. And I knew he was going to walk into the frame, and I was hoping to get the shadow. So I took a couple shots, but the one I liked most was when the shadow's in the frame here, and you had in this danger high voltage with this obvious senior citizen sitting here was again kind of a fun little added extra cherry on top. And the slouchy nature of this person, the reality and the fiction of the shadow. So again, it was just a combination of everything, and having the patience to wait and anticipate what's going on to have them come into the image. This is in New Orleans. It's the back of the cathedral on Jackson Square. They light this statue up at night, and it throws up this great shadow. And I stuck the camera lens through the wrought iron gate to get this long exposure. And, you know, it's something everyone does, and there are a lot of versions of this, but this was turned out nicely, and I've been able to sell a couple nice ones of this. This is a silhouette, and I'm setting this up because this is a statue of Andrew Jackson in Jackson Square in New Orleans. In this case, The statue is kind of green. It's sort of boring, uninteresting. But in the 1800s and going up through the early part of the 20th century, there were a lot of these black silhouette outlines of prominent figures like Washington, Madison, and just people in your community. And in my home in New England, I grew up with a lot of these things hanging on the wall. I love just the silhouette of this happening here, and then the bird landing on here was even more fun. The way you shoot this is you make sure the sun is coming right at you. This is in shadow, and you use your matrix or valuative metering, which takes in all this light, says it's too bright, I've got to darken it up, and it turns this into a silhouette. So what I'm leading up to here is I position myself to shoot on the dark side where the sun is on the other side and this is in shadow. And that means I think you've seen this shot before too. This is in Bermuda. This is ocean in the background. But the sun is coming over here. What you have here is the color blue is the same color blue here, but this is in shadow. So what caught my eye was this sort of stair-step zigzag line. But what helps make it is you get this shadow or color blue, this color blue, and this color blue. So I end up calling this Harbor Blues because it's in the harbor in Bermuda. But again, it's this thing being in shadow that helps add to the photograph. And the last one I want to show you is Crater Lake in Oregon. What this is the dull, boring, uninteresting side. The other side is where Wizard Island is and a lot of the nice iconic images that everyone shoots, except you'll notice down here, like the shadows are going off this way. So the other side, which would have been behind me, everything that would be interesting would be in shadow and dark and just not a great photograph. So I went over to the side of the precipice where you can't go any further because it's dangerous. And you can see how high up you are. And I knew all this would be in the sunlight and it made for a better photograph. And actually, it's an unusual view of Crater Lake. And I was able to get, a very nice image. So again, thinking about the sun, the shadows, the shade, what's going on, and it applies to everyday landscape images as well as anything else. Hopefully this made sense. Thank you for sticking with me, and we'll see you next time. My young computer-savvy assistant reminds me that it's really important to ask for likes and subscribes, but I would also love some comments below discussing what we're diving into and what you might want to see in the future. With all that out of the way, thanks for watching and thanks for your patience. See you next episode.